We're learning the words of the Vilna Gaon about how to react to criticism, unjust criticism, just criticism. And I started to share with you a letter that I received Sunday night. It was a very, very painful letter. It contained some things that were true, some things that were not true, some criticism, but it went in very deep. And it was an email. My initial reaction was to write another email, to send it back. But I remember the very, very, very wise words of Yisrael Belsky. Perhaps some of the wisest words that I've ever heard. He told me once, he said, when you write a letter, if it's an important letter, don't send it on the same day. Don't send it on the same day. He said, what you need is called Linas Lila, letting it sit overnight. Write the letter, put it down, come back the next day, and look at it again. And when you look at it the second time, you'll see it very, very different light, because every day a person's different. And especially when a person initially writes the letters, he's going with certain feelings and with certain outlook. So you have to do it again. So that's exactly what I did. I wrote a letter. And the next day, I followed the instructions of the Vilna Gaon as follows. The Pasuk says like this. It's Parak Yud Beis, Pasuk Tesvav. Derech Avil Yasher Be'einav, V'shomei Le'etzach Chacham. The way of an Avil is Yasher Be'einav. It looks like it's really good, it's really straight, it's really right. But, says Shlomo Melech, the person who listens to advice, he's a real chacham. The Gra says like this, a very, very important point he's making here in the art of dealing with life. The Gra says the Avil, which we said is from the root of evil. Evil is muvhal. He panics. You see it a lot in Megillah Esther, muvhal, everything's very fast and panicky. Masha Allah Alibo Yash. The first thing he thinks of, oh, what a great idea. He doesn't listen to Eitzah. He doesn't listen to advice. The Chacham listens to advice. He doesn't do anything if he's not completely miyushav. He doesn't rely on himself. Ki machshavas adam rakolia. Very important thing the Gra is saying. Since the chait of Adam Rishon, the initial reaction that a person has is always bad. The first thought that comes into your head is the Yetzer Hara has like first dibs, as they call it. He has the first chance. So the initial reaction that you feel in any situation is always wrong. It's always coming from the Yetzer Hara. For Yitzer Leva Adam Ram Numrav. L'cheinu Shamea Le'etzach Chacham. The person who listens to Eitzah, who listens to advice, he's a Chacham. Why? Because you have to know that thought that you have in your head is as good as it seems, but it's coming from Yetzer Hara. You're being bombarded in 6 directions. Ra, Mirma, Taiva, Chemda, Gay, Ga'oin. 6 directions. You're being bombarded by 6 different forces. Your honor, your pride, your ego, your desires, your wants, the need to deceive, deception, and evil. And that's pushing us to act in a certain way. And says to God, there's only one way to fight that. And that's to get Eitzah from a Chacham. Somebody outsider doesn't have that. I was once involved with a very, very difficult situation. And it was really, really hard. I felt very, very churned up about it. And then I thought to myself, let's say I was an outsider. How would I look at the situation? And that's really what the Gra is saying here. Shemei le'etzah chacham. The person who listens to Eitzah, that person is really a chacham. Because that person is, as it were, fighting that outside influence. He's fighting it by fighting the inside influence, actually, by getting wisdom from the outside. And that's the real chacham. So that's what I did. I called up a yedid of mine in America. We spoke for an hour. And I told him, what had been said. He said why it was important for me to respond to that letter because there were some things not true in it. I wrote the letter, I typed it up, and then I decided a big chiddush. I'm going to send it in the mail. The mail, that's that thing outside your house, the little box where you put paper in it. Usually it's bills, but there is such a concept of writing a letter and then sending it. So that's what I did. I sat and I wrote the letter. I went over it a few times. I didn't have a print. I went to a print shop to print it out. I had to make an appointment in the post office because you can't just walk in there anymore. And then I mailed the letter. It was like very expensive because they said, well, if you send a regular mail, it probably won't get there. And I wanted to get there that same day. So I sent the letter. It cost me quite a lot of money. And I realized, wow, it's like such a different experience. Such a different experience. And it dawned on me, incredible idea as a teacher of halacha. Most halachic literature, the body, comes from shelus and shuvas. Letters. Rabbanan would receive shilas, and they would sit down, and they would analyze it, and they would write out page, 2 pages, 3 pages, however much it took to write. And that most of our halachic literature from 40, 50 years ago, Rabbi Yasher said the last shelus and shuvas sefer was the Igros Moshe. But most of it isn't that way. And people just don't have the patience anymore. They get a question. Off the bat, they check in their computer, what's the answer? Someone told me the biggest rabbi in the world is Rabbi Google. He knows everything. But it doesn't work like that. It has to be a miyusha. Sit down, think about it, write it out, you break it down into parts. And really, that's what life is really all about. To react to something on the spot is a big mistake because life is very deep. And the challenges we're sent, the Yitzhar is very, very smart. He knows exactly how to get you. He knows your personality. He knows your weaknesses. He knows your desires. Someone told me there's a new system of that the computer technology uses is that when you log into a certain site to buy something, so like they start classifying your personality, what you like to buy, and then they start sending you the things that you like to hear, like to see. They like narrow down your desires, so and send you exactly what you're looking for. And the Yitzhak is 1,000 times more brilliant than Google. And he knows exactly how to get you which to sow you. And it's all for our benefit. The Yitzhak is Tov Meod, because it helps us grow from those challenges. We grow. As Rav Moshe Pir said, Al tivater al af. Don't be a mavater on nisyonos, because nisyonos help us grow. And that's what happened with this letter. And this is what the Gra is really telling us. And we'll see further on, we'll speak about that tomorrow, the next pasuk. Really, the wise person knows how to cover up his anger. Right? The fool, the uphill, the person who acts impulsively, just yesterday, feels pushed and he acts like that. The person who acts impulsively, he's finished. He's gonna like let it all out, as my Kavusin from as a bugger, Zev Epstein used to say. Let him have a piece of your mind, but you give them too much and everything falls out. Open-minded, it all drops out. But the wise person knows it's coming from the wrong place, being pushed by the wrong place. And to cover it up, to cover up the anger, to cover up the bad meanness. And if you go through life like that, you'll be extremely, extremely successful. Right? But if you let your impulses control you, then you'll be in a bad state, especially if you're a passionate person like me, who when you hear something that really annoys them, you get really upset. And you want to like really let it out. Now, there's a time and place for everything. When you see real evil taking place, then it's a good thing to give them a piece of your mind. Like I mentioned a few weeks ago, our base measures were stormed, the storming of the Bastille, and people came and they tried to attack a tzaddik. And we see a tzaddik being attacked. I, I screamed at them so loud that I lost my voice for 2 weeks. I still don't have it back. And that's the time and place. There's a time and place for passionate, immediate passion reaction. But even in the parsha of Pinchas, when you act with kanois, even kanois needs to be regulated. It needs to be thought through. Maybe quicker than other situations when it needs to be thought through. And this is what the Gra is revealing us today. You want to be successful in life, don't act spuriously, impulsively. Don't be pushed by your impulses. Because no matter how smart you are, that's what the Gra is revealing here. Yetzer Lev Adam Ram Inura. Right? And you have to act with armimius. You have to be naked. Now it's interesting because the Gra is calling it arum means with cunningness, and it also means nakedness. And we're talking about covering it up naked. I believe the pshat is you have to be arum in the Eitzara. Arum. So you be naked from the Eitzara, you have to remove, you have to undress as it were. A person is coated with the push of the Eitzara. If you want to know what the Eitzara is like, that's the Eitzara. If you feel like I must do something, I must say something, I'm really upset. I remember I was once with someone in the airport, and they were trying to bring some toothpaste back to Israel, some Tom's toothpaste. It's like an all natural toothpaste that has an OU extra on it. And they weren't letting them take it on the plane because it was the time when they thought that maybe people were putting bombs in their toothpaste. And the person got so angry that like screaming and yelling and just sitting there trying to calm him down. But this is it, when you act like that, you're just being pushed by the Yitzhar. That's raw. You feel like that push that you must react. That's the Yitzhar. And the person, Ezu Gibor Akovish Yitzhar, the person who has true inner strength, is able to overcome that push and to calm themselves down, to stop. And that's the opposite of Evel. The opposite of Evel is the Aram, and the Aram really knows how to the act of self-control. It's something we all have to learn because we're challenged with constantly. And the Graf finishes off here. Said that's the difference between this Torah Shabbat and Torah Shabbat Peh. Torah Shabbat is important, it's seeing, and he says Koach Duchra. The Koach of Duchra is to be mashpia, to give to others. The Koach of Nukva is to be makabel, to listen. And the Gra says listening is really, really important. Right? Harizan of Larayas. Harizan of Larayas should listen. But totally osman a makablim, it's better to be a makabel. It's better to listen. You're going to gain a lot more. But the derech avol is yashav eina. Shechefso lios he wants everyone to know what a genius he is. But a person's not such a genius. And right, Ezu chacham alom mikol adam. The person who's willing to learn from every person and listen to what they have to say carefully, like really active listening to what they have to say, that person will really be a chacham. So Hashem give us the greatest siyata shmai because it's so hard. It's so hard when you come confrontation. Everyone sees things differently. It's so interesting, this particular parsha that I was involved with. 3 different wise people, and they all see it so radically differently. And when you talk to them, it's very, very important, each person, to respect and understand where the other person is coming from, and not to let your emotions want to destroy the other person. This is so critical in life, and it can save us so much embarrassment and avera and anger, and just have a happier life. It's such a better life not to get upset with people. When you get upset with people, it's just so unpleasant for them and for you. So Hashem should give us the greatest siyata shmaya to be successful in controlling our emotions and to listen to other people and to recognize when we're being attacked by the Yitzhara, that push that's coming and that push force, and to instead to push the other way, like the opposite reaction. Every action needs an opposite reaction. Physics, that's how it works. So we need to push the other way, but to push with wisdom, chachma, to know how to do it. Shem Shikra is the greatest siyata d'shmaya to be successful in this endeavor. Amen.